Welcome to The Check-In, the Image podcast lifting the lid on women's health one honest conversation at a time. I'm your host, Ellie Balfe, and in each episode I will sit down with some leading medical minds to explore the realities of our health across every decade. From hormones to heart health, this is your space to feel seen, heard and supported as you take control of your health story. Because when women are informed, we are unstoppable. Image The Check-In is empowered by Boots, sponsored by Samsung, Waterstone Clinic, Irish Life Health and It's for Women. Today I'm joined by Caoimhe McAuley, Director of Pharmacy at Boots Ireland. With years of experience at the forefront of pharmacy care, Caoimhe brings a deep understanding of how pharmacists can help in women's health. Just a quick note before we begin, this podcast is here to share information and ideas about women's health. It is not a substitute for medical advice. If you have any concerns about your health, please contact a doctor or healthcare professional. Now, Caoimhe, you're so welcome to The Check-In. We're thrilled to have you as our first guest. I'd love to start with your story. What first drew you to pharmacy?
Okay, so I am originally from a very small village in County Antrim. And when I was younger, we kind of had the stables like in our community. So, you'd had the local GAA pitch, the hurling pitch, and you'd had the community pharmacy. And our community pharmacy was probably where you went to for your first port of call for advice. And it was almost that place where you knew you would get reassurance, you knew you would get good advice, and then you knew if you needed to, you would be referred on to your GP. So when I grew up, I kind of grew up knowing the impact that role had in my local community. And it was something that I loved. And it was something that I thought, that's what I want to be a part of. I want to contribute in a different way to a different community like that.
So it was almost a bit of a calling for you.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I had no pharmacist in the family, so had no real, I suppose, concept of what it would be like. But from what I've seen in my own community, I understood the importance of the role, and I understood that it kind of was an integral part of our network in our village, and it was something that I really aspired to. So yeah, that was I suppose the driving force behind it.
And tell us a little bit about your role as Director of Pharmacy at Boots. What does that involve for you?
Yeah, so that's a little bit different than what I started out with. So yeah, look, I am a qualified pharmacist. Originally started as a pharmacist in hospital initially, and then moved to Boots, and I've been with Boots for many years. And my role now is, as you said, it's Director of Pharmacy and Superintendent Pharmacist. So I am responsible for the end-to-end functioning of the pharmacy aspect of all of the Boots stores in Ireland. So everything from the governance, so how it actually functions, how we make sure we do the right thing for our patients in terms of safety, how we make sure we do the right thing for our pharmacists, to them thinking about, well, actually, how do you make the patient experience really good in pharmacy? What do we want that to look like? So how do I work with our pharmacists and our pharmacy teams in the background to create the right environment? And then part of my role is also thinking about what do we want the role of pharmacy in Boots to be? So I think a lot of people are probably familiar with the dispensing of medicines, or they know they go there to get their medicines. But actually, one of the things I absolutely love about my role is I have the freedom to create what different services that we offer as well. So I really, really love that aspect of it too.
What would be the most meaningful shifts that you've seen in terms of women's health and how women engage at the pharmacy counter? Or have you seen?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think probably the women empowering themselves has been the most meaningful shift, and it's something that I really want to advocate for more of. I think as women, we tend to put everybody else first, and sometimes we put our own health on the long finger. And what I have seen is, I suppose, women starting to come forward more and question about their own health and how they can help support their own health. And I mean, we've seen a big government focus on a women's health agenda, which is fantastic. We've all seen HRT moving into a free scheme, which is brilliant. So I think we've really moved into understanding that actually we need to do more for our female patients and for our female population. And you're starting to see that play through in pharmacy a little bit too.
And are there any particular services or campaigns or anything that you've done that you have instigated at Boots that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah. So when I joined Boots, I probably came in on the back of quite significant changes that had happened. So when I joined Boots, obviously we had bird flu, which it seems like an awful long time ago.
It does.
The pandemic, that was when vaccinating started in pharmacy, really. And my predecessor pioneered the way for vaccinations to happen in pharmacy. They'd never happened before.
Really?
Yeah, and the same individual also pioneered the way for emergency hormonal contraception, or the morning after pill as we would know it. So being able to access that from community pharmacy, that was new. That was back in 2011.
Yeah.
You had to go to your GP for that, which now feels so antiquated. So I suppose I came in on the back of that era, and then my ethos was really to think about, okay, how do we continue to destigmatize and I suppose poke a little bit at some of those other things that we know we should be doing for women in pharmacy. So in my time, I've seen the HPV, or the human papillomavirus vaccination, come into pharmacy as well. And that's a massive opportunity for women. We've also seen things like mole scanning come into pharmacy, and actually one which came in around my time as well for women, which I think is something I'm really proud to be able to talk about too, is the Safe Pharmacy campaign as well. And that's about creating a safe space for victims of domestic abuse to be able to seek out help as well. So there's been lots of things, but if I just think of some of those things that kind of come to my mind quite quickly,
Yeah.
those are some that are really
They all feel
powerful.
fairly groundbreaking and very significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And very well received. And I think in all of them, they've agitated for change. And I think in my role, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to agitate for more and more change.
And you mentioned earlier about safe pharmacy. Will you tell me a little bit about that? What is that?
Yeah, so that is actually a program that we started to pilot probably just before COVID time, actually. And unfortunately and sadly, we do have cases of domestic abuse still within our country. And, we see that. What we wanted to do was we wanted to create a safe space in pharmacy for anyone who's gone through domestic abuse to be able to access care. So how it works is if an individual is unfortunately involved in any kind of domestic abuse case or any kind of abusive case, and they need help, they can come in, ask us to use our consultation rooms. We will give them a phone if they don't have access to a phone, and we will give them a list of numbers to help signpost them to the right help. So whether that's within the local community, whether that's different liaisons, or whether that's the guards, and we will do that in a completely confidential way. So, you avail of the service, you can leave, you can come back to us. It'll all be kept completely confidential, and it's just for women to know there is that safe space there if they need it. That's probably what is some of the hardest points in their life.
I love it. I love it. I imagine that pharmacy is often, or if a pharmacy is often the first port of call for somebody to come in to talk about their health concerns. It's easy, when I think about it, it's easy to have a chat over the counter as you're coming in, picking up something or getting your prescription. Again, yay, free HRT is what I'm getting every month, and it's just wonderful. But how do you believe that women can best make use of pharmacy services in a way that is preventative and empowering?
Yeah, I think access is probably one of the key points. And if I think about what I said there at the very start around, we tend as women to think about everybody else first, and sometimes we do put our own health on the long finger. I think that real opportunity for women to actually come in and have a conversation with their pharmacist about what's important to them. So not just about their family, of course, that will be important too, and about all the other things that they're really busy with, but actually coming in and having that chat around, this is where I'm at. What do you think could help me? Because, we know there are so many different sources of information. And sometimes it can be really hard to decipher, actually, what does that mean for me? What's important for me? And how do I make sure I'm getting the right information? And I think that is the power of pharmacy as well. And it's so accessible. I mean, we're on every high street. We're in every county now. We've 90 stores. And your pharmacist is there, and they have time to talk to you, and they want to talk to you. So I think I would say, come yourself, come in.
Yes, yeah.
That's probably the first step.
Yeah, it really is a pre-GP step for a lot of people, really, isn't it? But what would you say to women who maybe feel a little bit overwhelmed or a little unsure or even shy to come in and have that conversation? Like, people look very busy, they might feel they're disturbing. What would you advise a woman who wants to come in to talk about something personal but they're not quite sure?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, it's totally fine to be overwhelmed. There is so much out there at the minute. We're overwhelmed with everything. So don't let that put you off. I think if you want to come in and speak to your pharmacist, if I think about how I practice, you know yourself as a pharmacist when someone approaches the counter, if that's going to be quite a quick consultation, if that's someone just wanting to pick up their medicines, or you're using your emotional intelligence and your intuition to know, actually, does somebody want to talk to me about something a little bit more? And you can very often sense if they're comfortable talking about it in front of other people at the counter, or do they need to talk about it on their own? So what I would say is, come in, approach your pharmacist. If it is something that you don't want to speak about in front of everyone else, just ask them, look, can I speak to you privately for a moment? Because one of the things that's brilliant about pharmacy is they all have what we call these consultation rooms. And those are private areas off the shop floor where you can have a conversation. So that's the first thing. Just be honest and be upfront about what you want. The second thing, your pharmacist, as I said, they'll know quite quickly whether it is something that warrants a 2-second conversation, a 2-minute conversation, or actually a longer conversation. And in that instance, you don't need to worry about how busy your pharmacist is, because your pharmacist will help direct you. So if your pharmacist is really, really busy at that time, they're probably going to say to you, look, I think this would be a brilliant conversation for us to have. Would you be free at this time? Because right now it's a little bit chaotic. Or do you have a number? Or can I call you? Or, can we pick up at a time that works for both of us? That way you're going to get the meaningful conversation that you want to. So don't be put off by things that you think are barriers. They're not. And your pharmacist will be able to work through those quite quickly for you. And the other thing is, for anybody who's really scared about it, you don't need to, be concerned about divulging everything in one go. Come in, have a chat, see how you feel. You and your pharmacist will build up a relationship. You can have more than one conversation.
Yeah, it's just the beginning, isn't it?
It's just
opening a conversation that might last for a lifetime,
Absolutely.
really, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that is the lovely thing, actually, in pharmacy as well. And you do tend to build that meaningful relationship with your patients.
Yeah.
And you then do naturally have those conversations with them at all stages of their life, which is really powerful.
I think that's an incredible resource. And I think a lot of women may not even know that they can
absolutely
take up that
absolutely
consultation room just for a chat.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. And actually, we mentioned the free HRT there. It's obviously so great since it became free in June of this year. But has the take up on it been what you expected?
We've seen a slight increase in take-up at the moment, and it's hard to tell because it's still a medicine that needs to be prescribed, obviously, by your GP too. But certainly from a pharmacy point of view, we have seen a slight increase in uptake. So I can deduce one of two things. Either there is slightly more prescribing, or the barriers to women accessing HRT have now been diminished. And we know, again, cost is one of those barriers, because as women, we will put everybody else before ourselves. So I'm delighted with the move, and I really, really support the government's vision and everything they're doing to empower female healthcare. I think it's fantastic. And I think HRT is just the first step. And I hope we can see more and more of these kind of things that help women at every stage of their life.
Yeah, the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
I suppose. Yeah, it really is wonderful. I was doing a little bit of research on this, and in the 2022 census, I was wondering how many women are in the menopause stage of life in Ireland. And it said that potentially roughly 650,000 at minimum at the moment are in the menopause, from peri right through to post.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of women.
And I think it's brilliant too that we have really broken the taboo around talking about it as well. And I think many more women are much more curious now around, is that perimenopause? What does that mean? And kind of seeking out that advice and information, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
There's so much more awareness. It really,
absolutely.
I think it's been really empowering for women, and it has reduced shame. Not that there should be any sense of shame, but people are now aware of, I feel this might be perimenopause.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
So In Boots, you see women from every generation, as you've said, and women are so health literate now. What do you still see to be the most common gaps, though, in knowledge? So obviously we know a huge amount more about menopause, but would there be areas where you would love to see a little bit more awareness in women's health?
Yeah, so I think where there is an emerging gap is probably in the younger decades. And I say an emerging gap because I think it ties back to we have a lot of different sources of information. And I think it can be quite confusing for some young women to really navigate through which of those sources are accurate sources, which sources are right for me. And so it's not necessarily something at the moment that we're seeing, is a big void of information. It's probably the opposite, but it's trying to help younger women distill down what that actually means. And particularly in that preventative stage, there is so much information out there about what vitamin should I take, what supplement should I take, that's really confusing when you're at that stage of life, when you're trying to prepare a solid health platform for the rest of your life. So I think that's one. I think HRT, we've spoken about, it's definitely was one from before, and I think definitely that miss or lack of information there actually is really, really moving forward too. So I kind of think that space before that is now the one to watch.
So I love the idea of creating a map of health checks that women could, like a health calendar. I just love thinking like this. And is this something that pharmacists can help a woman with, is planning what health checks, scans, checkups that they need to calendar for themselves, and helping women be more proactive about that kind of thing? Is that something that a pharmacist can help with?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's something that your pharmacist can advise you on. We have our national screening programs. So again, if I think specifically on women's health, so I think our youngest one is probably our cervical smear checks, or our cervical checks. So that's almost from your kind of 25 age range. And that's every 3 years to 5 years, depending. Then I suppose for a woman, the next national screening program is into your mammograms or your breast check awareness. That's normally around 50. And then bowel screening, which at the moment is 59 to 70. But I know there is expectation that will increase out from 55 to 74 as well. So those are kind of your national campaigns, and they're there. And, our HSE will call you when you're eligible for those campaigns. But there are so many other touch points for screening throughout all of the decades. So, if we even think from, say, your dental checks. So a lot of research and information is coming out now around the link to oral health and mental health and cardiovascular health. Your dental checks obviously are so important every 6 to 12 months, and then depending on the outcomes of those. Skin checks. So again, I spoke about we offer a mole scanning service, but just being very aware of your skin and any changes in your skin as you move through the decades of your life, because I think all of us, even with the best intents, are exposed to the sun.
Yeah.
So really understanding, is anything on my body changing? Do I have any moles that look different? Do I have any freckles that look different? And proactively planning in those skin checks.
How frequently should we be checking our skin?
So I would say,
Daily.
So the first thing I would say is know your own body and know your own skin. So some of us do have a lot of freckles, a lot of moles, some of us don't. If you do have a lot of freckles and a lot of moles, you should be getting those checked regularly. So
Every year?
Every year, every 2 years. But the most important bit is if you notice any change. So regardless of the time period from when you last got one checked, if you notice any changes, that's when you should be seeking to get that checked. Because we know actually all of us probably fear the worst outcomes whenever we go to get something like that checked. But actually early stage treatment and prevention with any changes in your skin is so powerful at stopping anything develop further into the future. So yeah, you have your skin checks. Then we have the things that I suppose that we kind of probably take for granted, like your eye tests. So You know, we should be thinking about how often do we get our eyes tested and what decade do we start to do that. A lot of that depends on if you have any other conditions that would mean you should get your sight tested. You know, so for example, if you have diabetes, if you have high blood pressure, all those things, we can help you with a conversation around, does that mean you should be getting it checked? Does it not? Hearing.
Yes.
This is massive taboo still. A lot of people will think nothing of getting their eyes tested, but there is still taboo around getting your hearing tested.
Really?
Yes, really. And that's something, again, I will be a big advocate for in any stage of your life. Prevention and knowledge is always so much more powerful than when we get to the point of having to cure.
Of when it's a problem?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think it's taboo, particularly hearing?
I think it's societal. I think we're okay with wearing glasses. I think we're okay with all talking about the fact that, you know, we might need to get our eyes tested. I think we're probably still quite awkward, embarrassed about, oh, so if I had to wear a hearing aid device of some description, what would that look like? And that's natural. Like, I would think that too, you know. So, but again, that has moved on and evolved massively. And some of the devices, we have hearing care in some of our stores as well. And I had the pleasure of actually going through and doing a hearing test in one of our stores. And they were showing me some of the devices at the end, had I required any intervention. And they're incredible.
Really?
Yeah. Really,
so small
so
and
discreet.
Yes.
So discreet. So again, that's another one that we probably don't even think about.
And is there an age when we should begin just having hearing tests, or do you go when you feel you're failing slightly?
Again, I would say it depends on your own life circumstances. So some people will, and they'll know that from a young age, be predisposed, you know, to having some hearing loss, and that'll be identified when you're quite young. But for some of the rest of us, it's things like, do you work in a very noisy environment? Are you constantly wearing AirPods or earbuds and really loud music going into your ears? That's when you should be considering, actually, I should probably just get my hearing checked to make sure everything's okay. And then I don't need to come back until actually we're maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the line, or I notice any changes. In previous times, it was probably around your 40s, your 40s to 50s, we would start to think about it. But now we're all really bad at putting loud AirPods in our ears. And for anybody who wears wearable devices, like, they constantly flash up at you, loud environment. So, you know, we're just more exposed to that now.
Yeah, so that's something to be really aware of. So what are the other checks or scans that people can have in pharmacy that they might not be aware of?
Yeah. So for us, there's a couple of things. We obviously do the mole scan, which I've spoken about there before. And that is really you coming to us to tell us, I think I've identified a change in a mole. So it's not where we would mole map your entire body. That's a little bit different. But if you thought, I can see a change in this mole or something that looks a bit different, then you would come to us. And in the private consultation room, by appointment, we would screen that mole for you and we'll send it off to a dermatologist and then send you back the results. It's a fantastic service. Again, I've used it myself. I swear by it. So that's available in community pharmacy. There are other things like health checks or health MOTs. So blood pressure checks, height, weight, BMI or your body mass index checks. All of those are available in pharmacy.
So the full MOT?
Full MOT.
Okay.
Yep. We did for a while look at cholesterol testing, and that's something I think we could see coming back into pharmacy again too, because a lot more people are starting to ask for that as well.
Yes, there is a lot more awareness about cholesterol and high cholesterol, I'm thinking. One thing I'm really noticing on social media myself is how we are bombarded with supplement advice. I know that myself, I'm being served up the virtues of creatine nearly every single day for lean muscle mass and ongoing brain health, which is very important to me because my mum has dementia. So I'm very aware of this. And the algorithm knows this. So I think I'm going to go and buy some creatine. And the thing is, you know, in the medical community globally, you see lots of people talking about, you know, ingredient X, Y, and Z. And then some people are selling their own supplement lines. And it just, as a regular person trying to make sense of it and find some credibility, it's really difficult. So what would you say? Can you as a pharmacist help us understand what we should be taking per decade of life?
Yeah, we absolutely can. And again, I'll give you a very top line version, but speak to your pharmacist, because I think what's really important in all of this when we talk about vitamins and supplements, The key as well to understanding what you need is understanding what you believe you're deficient in your own diet, because that's probably where we take you right back to. So what are you getting from your own diet? And then what do we believe we need to supplement your diet with to help you? So that's probably the first point that I'd caveat the next couple of statements that I'm about
So
to
a
make.
nutrition first approach.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I suppose by decade, what you're trying to think is what is going on in each decade, and therefore what is it you're likely to need in terms of to help supplement you. So if I take us to our 20s, so between our 20s and our 30s, you're at that stage building a really strong foundation for your future health. So you're thinking about your bones. So you're probably thinking about your calcium and your vitamin D. You're probably thinking at that stage as well around, you may be in university, you may be taking on your first job, all of those kind of bits and pieces. So you're probably going to be a bit more tired. You're probably thinking about your iron. Okay?
Yeah.
Then when you move into your 30s to 40s, that is the decade, I think, for a lot of us that life suddenly gets busy. So we thought we were busy before, but we'd really no idea until we got to that decade. And that's when you're starting to think about, what do I need to help supplement me on top of also taking care of my bones and those foundational things that I would have thought about before? This is when you start to think about, we're maybe in the journey of starting to think about parenthood, or we're in parenthood, or we're in stressful careers, busy environments. Magnesium becomes quite important for your sleep, because we actually really start to value our sleep. And our omegas become very important for your heart health and for your brain health.
Mm-hmm.
Then we kind of move into that 40s to 60s decade, and that's when a lot of monumental change happens. So for us as women, that's when we start to go through perimenopause or menopause as well. And we know that as estrogen depletes, that actually our bone density starts to deplete too. So we've got to do a lot of work to make sure that we are holding up and maintaining our bone health. So again, I come back to your vitamin Ds and your calciums. Then you also maybe start thinking about your B vitamins as well coming in here too. And you're starting to think about possibly coenzyme Q10. So that is like the inner powerhouse of your cells. You'll start to think about, okay, I probably want that. And then you're thinking about, again, how do I continue to protect my heart and my brain? So your omegas come back into. Then when we get from our 60s onwards, that's when you are reflecting on how you maintain the really strong body that you have built up to that point. And that's when you're thinking about, so how do you prevent any decline, and what are the things you need to start thinking about at that stage? And that's where we possibly get into like the zincs for immunity, the lutein for eyesight, and probably again thinking about some of your amino acids for muscle mass. So that's the way I would look at vitamins through the decade. And then I would have a conversation with the lady or the individual standing in front of me and say, so, talk to me about your diet. Where are you deficit and what's right for you? I think what is really confusing is we have a lot of formulations that have a lot of things in them together, and they tend to be branded or marketed at, this is for menopause, this is for bone health. A lot of them actually all still have quantities of everything you need, but it's just going through that with your pharmacist and making sure you're not inadvertently taking too much. The other massive thing that I think is really, really important in this space is actually your movement.
Yes.
So in every decade there, I've talked about bone health, and the more and more we are learning, it is your weight bearing or your weight loading activities that become so important for strengthening your body and strengthening your bones. So it is probably not to underestimate the impact that any kind of resistance or weight bearing training can have as well on your bone and joint health too.
Yeah, so supplements can only do so much, really. They supplement, as the word says.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's so helpful to hear it explained like that. That's really clear. Could somebody go into a pharmacist and say, okay, here's everything I'm taking. Do these make sense together?
Absolutely. And we have it every day. And then the bit that becomes really important too is, and what other medicines are you taking? Or is there anything else you're taking with that too? Not so much vitamins, but some supplements and a handful of vitamins can interact with your medicines too. So that's why it is so important to have that rounded conversation. And your pharmacist will only be too happy to help you with that.
I think that's fantastic. Just to get that full global view on everything you're doing in your lifestyle, any medications and the supplements.
Yeah.
That is just so important. Really helpful to hear that explained so clearly. And actually, speaking of health insights and advice and social media, there's a lot of Dr. TikTok out there. And again, confusing. And it's all, I think it can be great that people are becoming more health literate, but I'm sure you're seeing this quite a lot, are you? That people are coming in almost self-diagnosing or saying, I need to take a particular medicine or supplement. How do you deal with that?
So I think the point you made is really important first. It is brilliant that we are all becoming more empowered about our health, because that's what we all want to do. I think in any information source, you have to check the source. People can be very well-meaning and well-intentioned. And I do believe we have platforms that are well-meaning and well-intentioned, but we've good and bad actors in some of those platforms. And that's where I think being really clear on your source of information and understanding its level of credibility becomes really important. So as a pharmacist, I will never have an issue or be in any way put out if a patient comes up to me and says, I've read, therefore I am, therefore I think I need this. What do you think? Because actually we should be empowered and we should own our health and we should be open to having those conversations. It's just taking it right back to, are you fact checking where you're getting your information from? And in some instances, it will be reliable information. In some, it may not be. And that's the importance of coming in and having the conversation with your pharmacist. I think we all want to be a lot more empowered with our own health. And I think that's right. I mean, we're all wearing wearables of some description, and our own understanding of our health has massively elevated than even a couple of decades ago.
It really has, and it's so important. And we're trying to make credible, informed choices about our health. But so could somebody come in to the pharmacy counter and ask about anything that's topical or people are talking about in their group chats, or, there's so much now around GLP-1s and all of these topical trends.
Yes.
And it's in conversation, it's everywhere you go. We could even just walk in and say, can you please just give me the rundown on this and if it's good for me, before they try to go to get a prescription.
Exactly as you've just said. And even if it's something that's maybe just in your head, the next time you're in and you're talking to your pharmacist, just say it. Just say, look, I've heard this, or, my daughter's talking about this, or my mother's talking about this, or my friend told me about this. We are more than willing and want to have the conversation with you, because ultimately it is about doing the right thing for you and empowering you to own your own health journey. And there are so many different conversations going on so many different platforms at the moment that I really would encourage you to come in and speak to us.
This episode of Image the Check-In is empowered by Boots. Boots pharmacists are with you for life. They are often the very first stop when it comes to advice, care and guidance. For all facets of women's health at every age and every stage, Boots is here to help you feel informed, supported and empowered every step of the way. We are proud to partner with them to bring you the knowledge you need to future-proof your health. Caoimhe, I feel everyone is talking about GLP-1s. Can we talk about it?
Yeah, I think maybe if I even take us back to obesity in the conversation. So if we talk about GLP-1s and the treatment of obesity, Ireland actually has one of the highest obesity rates in Europe, and we continue to see obesity levels rise.
So where are we at?
So combined overweight and obesity, the last read was over about 60% of the population, and obesity closer to 30% of the population identifying as being obese. So that's a BMI of 30 or higher. But obesity itself, it is actually defined as the World Health Organization as a chronic medical condition. And I think that's a really important place to even start the conversation, because for years, and I think particularly as women, we've been told, well, losing weight's easy. You eat a bit less, you move a bit more, and really you should be able to lose weight. But what we've actually discovered from years and years of research is that may be the case for some people, but not for everyone. And actually there may be genetic reasons, there may be hormonal reasons, there may be medications that you are taking and so on and so forth that actually makes sustained weight loss more and more difficult. And obesity itself, while it is defined as a chronic condition on its own, we know that it is the precursor to other health complications. So we know it's linked with blood pressure, we know it's linked with cardiovascular health, with stroke, with diabetes, with joint, with liver, so many different organs that obesity has an impact on. And I think we need to be really careful when we start the conversation about GLP-1s and the treatment of obesity, that we don't stigmatize as well anyone seeking out a GLP-1 as it being something that we shouldn't have the right conversation about, or we shouldn't have a conversation with our prescriber. There'll be many reasons that people either choose to see a physical GP or an online GP, and some of that may be around convenience and ease of access. But the other big thing that we do know is sometimes people are a bit embarrassed to actually talk about this and to actually admit, for want of a better word, that they have sought health, or they have sought help, and that they're taking one of these GLP-1s, because sometimes we can make it feel like a shortcut, and that's absolutely not what it is. For some people, it may be an addition, and something to really help them reset their healthy habits.
And is our GLP-1 something that people stay on for life, or like what's the time frame for it really working for people?
So it very much depends on the level of obesity that the individual's talking about, and I suppose the response that they're seeing to the drugs. Ideally, it is not something that you would want to see somebody using purely for obesity purposes for the rest of their life. And that is why it is so important that we also talk about how these medications are used, because they can be seen as this magic bullet, because really what they do is they stop you having food noise. They make you feel a lot fuller for longer. And they really stop you seeking out, I suppose, that instant gratification and that reward from food. So on its own, it can seem like, well, this is a really good way to lose weight. But actually, if we think about these for what they are a tool to also help take some of the food noise away, take some of the behavioural habits away, and then for you to identify, when I am hungry, how do I make the right food choices for my body? And actually, how do I also then use the opportunities that this has given me, like weight loss and therefore potentially more energy, to then think about how I also exercise a bit more and how I have more healthy behaviours there. We know that these medications as well, the conversation we have constantly is you need to continue to muscle bear and work out with weights. So exercise becomes so important. And that's really, really important when we're talking about these medications. They're not the answer alone. They are part of a conversation and a regime that can really help people who have obesity issues, who cannot lose the weight in the traditional way that we would say you can.
So it's like a circuit breaker almost. It's an opportunity for people to break their habits and tune back in and see what's going to work for them in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the honest reality as well is when you stop taking these medications, generally over time, your appetite will increase again, and some of that food noise that was there will increase again.
And tell me what food noise really is. You hear this phrase a lot. Is it just people thinking what they're going to have for their next meal, or is it more based around cravings or this constant feeling of I want to?
GLP-1s themselves work on what we call the appetite centers in the brain. So it's a neural pathway. And I think we all know as humans that we are quite controlled by our hormones. So we get happy by our hormones, we can be sad with the lack of certain hormones, and so on and so forth. The food noise that we talk about is that neural pathway. So it is that kind of stimulation of overthinking of where the next happy hit is going to come from and what that's going to mean in terms of potentially for some people food. But you've hit on a really interesting point, because the other evidence or the other research that's going on with GLP-1s at the moment too is on that craving center. And it's not just related to calorific reward. Actually, satiety, things that we crave, like nail biting, things like that.
Does it work on alcohol addiction? Does it work on any other type of addiction or not?
Well, I think at the moment it is licensed for weight loss in obesity. But there have been some very, very interesting studies carried out, and there was quite a famous one carried out a number of years ago involving rodents. And it was when they were testing the GLP-1s on rodents, and they exposed some of them to wine, which was calorific, and they exposed some of them to other drugs that potentially have addictive properties but don't have calories attached to them. And actually what they found was when they were using GLP-1 medicines, the rodents stopped going for either, which is where this piece has come in around. It is more than just food, it's satiety, it's that neural pathway that it is also having an impact on.
So interesting. But let's talk about side effects. So then again, this is another thing you hear a huge amount about. Does everybody get side effects that you hear about, or is it only certain people, or what are you looking at?
Again, I would probably start by saying GLP-1 medicines are medicines. And as a pharmacist, I can tell you every medicine has a benefit and a side effect. And the most important thing with this category of medicines, like every other medication, is that you are having the proper conversation with your prescriber about what is the risk-benefit ratio for me. Because actually, the benefits here may outweigh the risks and some of the side effects, but you need to be informed as a patient what that actually is. So we know the big benefit here is weight loss. And actually we know in patients who suffer from obesity, even a weight loss of 5 to 10% of their body weight is enough to significantly reduce the likelihood of some of those other diseases that I spoke about earlier. So that is a massive benefit. The other benefit also is we're starting to hear that actually GLP-1 medications work potentially as an anti-inflammatory impact around the heart, so the cardiovascular system, and the kidneys, so can have real benefits in those patients too. But they do have side effects. So how those medications work is really regulating the release and the stopping of different hormones in the body, and then really slowing down how food transitions through the body. So some of the most common side effects you will hear with these medications are like GI disturbances or gastrointestinal disturbances. So the likes of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, headaches. What's important as well to note with some of these side effects is things like headaches can also be dehydration, which can also be caused by really rapid weight loss. So you almost need to look at what the medicine's doing and the side effect profile and manage it that way too. And then of course there are more rare and more complicated and complex side effects too. I think the one everybody probably knows is pancreatitis, because we're stimulating the pancreas to produce more and more hormones. But I think the really important thing here is these medications have a place when used appropriately and used with the correct guidance from your prescriber. And you as an individual need to be really, really informed about what you're doing. And as I said, understand that risk-benefit profile, because that's ultimately what's the most important for you, and really being in control of that choice yourself.
Yeah. So they can make a huge change to people's lives, but they have to be used correctly.
Absolutely. They have to be used correctly. And as I said, they are not the magic bullet alone. And again, I talk a lot about misinformation and disinformation. It's really important to understand what these medications, when we talk about obesity, are licensed for. It is over a BMI of 30 purely for obesity. In some cases, the BMI can be slightly lower, but it's generally where you also have another co-condition like diabetes. But individuals who have what we call a normal BMI or 25 or below, that is not what these medications are licensed for. That is not what these medications should be used for. And unfortunately, some of the beneficial side effects of these medicines have also been diluted perhaps by some of the misuse of these medicines, and you hear a lot about these medicines being sought on black market if they can't be got through the right channels.
So Caoimhe, I'd love to know how you personally take care of yourself. What are your health and well-being non-negotiables that you do?
My non-negotiables. Okay, so I'm only human, so I'll say what I try to do. I am a firm believer in exercise. It clears my head. It gives me time on my own where I can listen to my music or my podcasts and not be distracted. So I always try to fit exercise into my weekly habits and into my daily habits. I am also conscious that I'm at the decade where muscle becomes slightly more important than cardiovascular. So I do try to do weight-bearing exercise as much as I would do cardiovascular exercise. So that's kind of what I try to do.
3 times a week, are you talking?
On a good week, if I'm been very good and I'm not doing a lot of traveling to somewhere that I can't access equipment and stuff, I would say 3 times a week. If I'm been very disciplined and I'm at home, or I'm in the country all week, I would go every morning, just for a short blast. It's how I set myself up in the morning. It's what I like to do. It clears my head as much as anything else. I try to eat healthy, but I say I try to. When I'm at home, I find that much easier because you're much more in control of what's in your own cupboard and what you can put together yourself. It's hard in hotels, and I am human and I am tempted like everyone else. So I try to eat as healthily as I can. In terms of screening, so I religiously adhere to all of the national screening programs because I'm a firm believer in prevention being better than the cure. And I know some people can be daunted by the thought of tests and by the thought of examinations, but actually the opportunities and the options to treat the earlier something is detected are much, much more. So I have my cervical smear, as I should do, in line with when I'm called. I have a family history actually of breast cancer, so I have had my first mammogram, even though I'm below the screening age. I do get my eyes tested. I'm actually due to get my eyes tested again. I've had my hearing tested, and I do follow my oral hygiene, so I would have my regular dental checkups. And then the other thing for me, I am very naturally fair-skinned. Unfortunately, I was probably a little bit too fond of the sun when I was younger. So I do have quite a few freckles and quite a few moles. So I do get my skin checked at least once a year, as I've had a couple of moles removed. So
it's a good comprehensive plan. When you say it's daunting, I think it's a lot less daunting than what might happen if you don't. Tell me about supplements. Do you take supplements?
I do.
Which ones do you take?
Okay, so this is what I take. So this is what works for me. But I know when we spoke earlier, the whole field of supplements and vitamins, it is a little bit of a minefield. So you have to, have the conversation about what it is you're looking to take the supplement or the vitamin for and what works for you. So for me personally, I have 3 kind of core staples that I take most of the time. So I do take a multivitamin preparation. I take Revive Active because it has over 26 vitamins and supplements in it, and it particularly links to what I feel I need from this decade of my life. So we have CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, L-arginine, my vitamins B, C, D and E. I have my magnesium in it, and those things are very important to me as they're antioxidants. They're good for my heart health, they're good for my energy levels, and good for my sleep. So that's why I take that particular preparation. And I'm very bad at taking multiple different combinations. So one that just has all of the things I want in it is much more convenient for me.
Tell me about CoQ10, actually. I'm quite interested in that. What's that doing for us?
Yeah, so CoQ10, and you'll hear it spoken about quite a bit. The easiest way of probably explaining it's produced naturally in your body, but it kind of works on like your cellular powerhouse. So the bit in our bodies are the bits in our muscles and cells that kind of give us the energy and keep us going. It works there to constantly produce the fuel. So it's very, very good for energy. It also has antioxidant properties. So it's very good for protecting the organs. And it's very good for energy. So that, for me, is really important in this decade of my life.
That sounds good. What else do you take?
The other thing I take, so I, for cosmetic reasons, take a collagen. And the particular collagen that I do take, it's Absolute Collagen. And I say for cosmetic reasons at the start because you need to understand, again, like any vitamin or supplement, when you're seeking it out, what is the purpose of seeking it out? So the particular one I'm taking, it has a higher concentration of what they call type 1 collagen, which is proven or more akin to the skin, hair, nails profile or the impact there.
Okay, so that's not working on joints.
Not so much. It tends to be the type 2, type 3 collagens that are the ones that you use for joints. But I am getting some of my bone health and some of that from my Revive. So I'm okay there. I'm just using the collagen for aesthetic purposes. And that particular formulation as well, it's what they call hydrolyzed. So it's broken down. It's easier for the body to absorb. So I like it and I use it. And then the other big one that I take, so because I travel a lot, because I can be in and out of hotels and I try to be good and I try to eat healthy, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. I'm not getting such a diverse range of food that I should. I take something for my microbiome. So I take a product called Simprove religiously every morning to help my gut microbiome.
And what's the importance of the gut microbiome?
So again, this is another one that a lot of research is going into. So the gut microbiome itself is a population on its own, or it should be. Trillions of bacteria, fungi, etc., 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 that are essential in your body for really thinking of everything from how you digest food, to how you produce energy, to how you sleep, to your brain impact as well, to your mood impact. There's a vagus nerve that runs from the gut to the brain, and they talk about the gut-brain axis. And what they're actually finding out is that a more diverse and multicultural gut microbiome also can help with mood and can help with clarity and function of the brain as well. So that with fibre is really, really important.
Yeah, and the fibre conversation is increasing now as well, isn't it? Isn't it? You get 30 grams and 30 plants.
And it's that diversity. It's that diversity in everything we're taking. And again, as women, whenever we get to a particular decade of our lives, that's when fibre becomes even more important as well. And even again, you know, cosmetically and aesthetically for bloating as well, your fibre is really important for that too. So
Tell me about creatine. I know I'm very interested in.
yeah, you are.
I know it's one of the most studied supplements out there. What do you think? Do you take it?
I personally don't take it, but only because I don't feel I need it. It is one of the most studied supplements and vitamins out there. And for a long time, it has kind of been associated almost with bodybuilders or for muscle. But how it actually works, and again, it's quite similar to coenzyme Q10. They all work on this like powerhouse in the body. And it's used traditionally in sport industry for almost giving you that high firepower when you need it. So when it's like one more rep of weights or one very fast paced run or whatever it is, that's where creatine tends to come into itself. But what, again, we're finding more and more recently is because it kind of works on this powerhouse in the body, it's a molecule called ATP. It replenishes the reservoirs of this power source in the body constantly and in the brain. And what we're starting to discover is that actually, particularly in cognitive issues, actually having a constant supply of ATP in the brain can help regulate cognitive function, can stop reducing brain fog. And therefore, that's why we're starting to hear that conversation about, so what's it doing with brain health and should it be used separately on its own for brain health? The other place we're starting to hear it is in frailty. So as we get older, you know, one of the main causes of frailty is a loss of muscle mass. And actually there probably is a place for creatine there in terms of being a building block for our proteins that's stored in our muscle. So as you said, it's one of the most researched vitamins and supplements, and certainly something that is gaining a lot more attention. I think what's always important to quantify in the vitamins and supplement space in comparison to medicines is sometimes the trials are a little bit different and the evidence can be a bit more anecdotal. And it tends to be based a lot more over time in what we start to see.
But I love what you said there about choosing what supplements you're going to take according to what purpose you need them.
Absolutely.
So many topical things going around that are viral, as you say. Don't need them all.
No, absolutely not. And sometimes we can get sucked into the world of marketing where just because something's in front of you, that's maybe what you think you should be taking. But again, I appreciate it is such a complex space, but that is where I really think you can use your pharmacist to have that conversation. I think that the global message I'm trying to get across is I think the power of being proactive about your health comes in being open and talking about your health, and no topic is taboo. Your pharmacists are highly trained, highly skilled professionals. I have now been practicing for probably too long to share on the camera, but there is yet to be anything that any patient has said that has shocked me or stopped me in my tracks. So you might be very cautious of sharing something, or you might think, oh, I just don't know, how I'm going to open up. The chances are we've heard it, and we've probably heard it several times. So, come to your pharmacist and talk.
That's actually very moving, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
lovely to know that pharmacy can be that kind of support.
Yeah, and I think it is, something we've talked about a lot on this podcast. We tend to associate pharmacy with giving out medicines. And of course, your pharmacists are your medicines experts. That's what they do. They're absolutely fabulous. But we are so much more than that. And we're in your communities. We probably are somebody that you know, or sometimes someone that you want to be anonymous, which is totally fine too. And it's really just coming to us and talking about it, because we can really help empower you with a lot of your own healthcare needs.
Wow, you've given us so much to think about, Caoimhe. Thank you so much. I think our listeners will really benefit from this in so many ways. Before we finish, though, can I ask you for a few final reflections? What is one piece of health advice you would love to impart to women?
Talk. Talk.
Yeah.
Talk. I could say, exercise. I could say, think about prevention. But actually it all comes back to talk and be curious.
Yeah.
Just talk and be curious. And the more we do that, the more we're probably going to expand the conversation about what is right for you, what really helps you take care of your health, and then what helps us take care of you when you need us to take care of your health for you too.
And what gives you hope, Caoimhe, about women's health and how it's progressing?
I think the steps we've seen so far, I think the evolution that we have seen in terms of the real focus on women's health. And I know that we have a current health minister who is really, really focused on continuing that empowerment of female health. And I know our minister has spoken very openly about wanting to expand the role of pharmacists and pharmacies in our local community. And actually, a lot of that is in the women's health space. So that gives me hope. That gives me real hope that actually we are open and pushing the doors on having more conversations about what's right for women.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. I think you've opened the door to the pharmacy for us all. We'll all be running in after this. Thank you. So good to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for checking in with us. We hope today's episode gave you insight and clarity. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, or share it with a woman you feel needs to hear it. Image the Check-In is empowered by Boots and sponsored by Samsung, Waterstone Clinic, Irish Life Health, and It's for Women. Thank you to our partners for making these conversations possible, and thank you for listening. For more expert advice and real women's health stories, visit the Image Women's Health Clinic on image.ie and follow us on Instagram. Until next time, take care.